Hello, and welcome to our We Are Power webinar. Very, very special webinar this month because we are going to be talking all things Northern Power Women Awards and how to ace those nominations. Northern Power Women Awards, the largest event celebrating gender equality in Europe. We are entering into our 9th year, can you believe it? We get about 1,400 nominations, and this week's panel, or this month's panel, I'm joined by our judges, one of our game changers, just to have a conversation to try and help ease you, get your fingers ready for that keyboard to make that nomination. Or equally, don't forget now, we also are open for audio nominations, so you can voice memo away. If you haven't got the inclination or the skills to write, you can voice memo and we will put those into the judging process as well. So really excited to be having this conversation today. Please let us know, wherever you're joining us from, let us know in the chat. Where are you? What's the weather like? We always want to know that. We'll not get into trains and if you got delayed today, but no, let's focus on the positive, glorious tropical weather that we have up north. But yes, please drop any of your questions into the Q&A. But a few facts for us. The nominations are open right now up until midnight on the 27th of September. So take this summer period while you've hopefully got a little bit of time, less meetings, less running around, less trains, to make some of those nominations. Everything is done through our award-winning digital hub, wearepower.net, and it's totally free to make a nomination. We've got loads of resources as well, so you can go onto the platform, you can click on, we've got FOQs, we've got category guide, because we've got different categories. So from person with purpose to inclusive innovation to mentor to organisation. We've then got our game changers, our power list, our future list, and our advocacy list, which was new last year. And we've also got a new award as well, which Tracy Brabin, the Mayor of West Yorkshire, was our first recipient and patron of, which is the Public Spotlight Award. So who out there in the public spotlight is doing great things but using their power for good? Let's shine a light on them and lift them up, because they're the ones that are hopefully going to help us a lot more, accelerate that gender equality and, you know, change the world as we're going to move on. Our Person with Purpose Award, which is always the most popular category. We always get so many nominations, which and equally so very, very difficult to judge. We're splitting that this year into an award. We're going to give an award for charity, a CIC, one for private organisation or corporate, and one for public service, because we want to make sure that we're unearthing and celebrate those brilliant stories and those individuals that really are purposefully driving change in their communities and in their organisation. Equally, our inclusive innovation this year, we're going to split into two awards. So inclusive innovation, sometimes people think, is it just about, you know, flying a drone, wearing a lab coat? No, it's not. We want to split that this year into a human-focused approach and then also the tech for good side. So there's loads of different categories. So there'll be someone or some organisation or team out there that you want to recognise. Please do take the time. And our category shortlist will be announced next January on the 14th. And the advocacy, power and future list will be announced between the 28th and the 30th of January as well, over those 3 days. And the awards themselves will take place a Thursday. First time this year we've moved to a Thursday, and it will be on the 6th of March. So get ready to partay and to celebrate. So I think I've exhausted myself with facts and figures. There's no quiz. There's no quiz there, so don't worry. All of the information's in there. But I'm now delighted to welcome two of our fantastic supporters, advocates, patrons, and we've got Advita and we've got Amar joining us today. Hello there. How are we both?
Good, thanks.
Good morning.
So a quick intro. Let me start with you, Amar, because I always think you two do so many things. So for me to try and, I'm not going to read your bio out. You introduce yourselves. Amar, let me start with you.
Yeah, thank you, and delighted to be here. And thank you for inviting me along to this special session. Probably the hardest question ever, Simone, is what do you do? So the simplest and quickest way to answer that is everything I can. And I try and add value. So I fix things and make them better. So I'll pause there.
I like that. Advita. Trump that.
Trumpet. So I own a consultancy. If you can't tell, the name is called Comms Rebel, based in Manchester. So I work with organisations to help them build better inclusive cultures so people can thrive in their work. I'm also the co-founder of A Leader Like Me, which is a global consultancy helping global organisations build inclusive cultures. And I also co-founded a coaching retreat called Calm Edge Rebels to help people live the life that they're meant to lead as well. So those are my very quick intros, Simone.
And one of our future list, and Amar, you are a patron of the new advocacy list as well. So thank you so much. How would you describe Northern Power Women Awards for someone who's never heard of them? Avita, I'll start with you, because you've been to many, you're on a list, you nominate, you've been nominated, and you're a judge.
I am, yes. And I've been part of your world for, I think, 7-8 years now, Simone. And it's no secret that the Northern Power Awards, and I speak about this all the time, changed my world. And that's what I see the Northern Power Women Awards as a platform to celebrate and recognise some incredible people who are doing some remarkable things out there. And when I first was nominated for the Future List in 2017, 2018, I was lost in my career. My confidence was short. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And knowing that somebody appreciated and recognized who I was and what I was doing really gave me the boost. And it was actually at one of the Northern Power Women's events where I decided I was going to set my own business up. And I shared this story on my LinkedIn a few times. And that's what I see Northern Power Women is. It's an opportunity to celebrate and recognize the incredible folks around us, the women who are doing brilliant work and the advocates and the allies who are supporting the vision and the mission of Northern Power Women. And it just gives you a boost of confidence and allows you to see some of the great things that you are that you may not recognize in yourself.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. And I love the fact you regularly share that story. I quickly dropped Advita a WhatsApp one Monday afternoon. We were holding an event that night and someone had dropped out of a panel discussion we were holding. And I said, do you fancy joining the panel? And Advita said, yes, absolutely. And it wasn't until later on that you were like, I've never done that before. I've never spoken on a panel.
No.
But you did it. You did it and you were amazing.
I did.
Yeah. And you matched the couch, if I remember. I'm pretty certain.
I did. I matched the couch, and that was my first ever public speaking opportunity. And and like I said, it changed my life. You know, I've spoken at over 150 events globally, all over the world, doing some fantastic things. I host podcasts. I've written a book, and it all started on that purple couch.
And I think that's the thing. We always talk about the awards not being for one night. They're never for one night. I always think, me personally, I'm never for one night. You know, once you're in the world, you're always in the world. Amar, you probably know that because you've been gathered. And why actually? Why have we got this is Northern Power Women. Why have we got a man on this? But from day one, we've always been all genders, and the awards have always been for all genders, because we need our advocates and we need our supporters and our sponsors to be able to kind of help unearth some of those amazing humans. And so last year I corralled you, I think, into being a patron of the newly formed advocacy list, because we wanted to set aside a new sort of group that if we could create this multiplier effect through male advocacy for gender equality, actually, how could we really create some impact? So what's different for you? How would you sum up the Northern Power Women Awards when you're sort of referring to it over in the wonderful Northeast on your travels?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think Avita has sort of clearly illustrated what it is from a personal and professional perspective. But for me, it's a community. It's a gathering of individuals getting behind a campaign that's trying to address some of the challenges that exist with gender inequality. Right? I mean, I've mentioned this. The UN still talks about. It's going to take another 163 years for gender equality. And that's based on what's going on, right? And that's based on the amazing work that you're already doing in a collective and collaborative way. So it's incredibly important. I think the other thing is you and we shouldn't isolate or insulate people as well. So having all genders sat round, having the conversations, having those type of debates where you go, well, actually, how do I best support? How can I influence? How do I use my position of whatever it is to further enhance and support what you're doing? So it's a community first and foremost. And rather than focusing on the negatives that exist, and it's absolutely critical that we do, it's about the positives. It's about happy, smiley faces. I'm sat here admiring both of you in the passion that you bring, the positivity, and the fact that you're persevering as well is a beautiful thing.
For sure, absolutely, for sure. And Avita, what does a good nomination look like? Because we have around 70-ish judges, 70 more or less. In the judge, a judge will only get one pack, as in one category, because when you've got like 1,400 nominations, there's a lot coming in, and they're absolutely all different sort of stories that you're reading about. So how can we help our judges? How can we help you put something down? Because you get people go, oh, this it's a big awards, I'm never going to get anywhere. But what's good for you as we sit around that table and arm wrestle out? Because it's quite a big discussion, isn't it?
It is, yeah, definitely. And for me, I forget about the humble brag. It's just brag about the incredible stuff that you have done. The number of nominations I have read that doesn't clearly articulate the why is really frustrating, because we can see that that individual is doing some brilliant work, but you have to remember, as a nominee, as a nominator, we as judges don't know that individual and probably haven't met them. So we can only go off what's on that piece of paper. And sometimes I think people hold themselves back. And for me, a good nomination is someone who has been quite specific about what they are doing, has put in some good measures and outcomes of the achievements that they've done, and the impact that they've had as well, and the outcomes that they've achieved. And also talking about some of the great advocacy work that they might be doing, or allyship that they might be bringing in, and how they're bringing that gender equality across the north of England as well is really important. And I think that's one of the things that anyone who's kind of listening to this today who feel that they may not be good enough or know where they're going to win that, is to kind of remove that thought. Because the last thing you need, and I say this to everybody that I work with, is there'll be people out there who don't believe in you, but don't let that person be you. And that's really important when you're putting in a nomination for the Northern Power Women. You have to believe in yourself. And it's really important that you share and you recognise the great contributions that you're making in the work that you're doing, and being quite clear and specific about that as well.
I love that. It's not the humble brag, it's the brag.
It's the brag. I'm just going to say, as women specifically, we're terrible. We are absolutely shocking at talking about some of the great things that we're doing. And it really frustrates me when people say, oh, just it's nothing wrong with a humble brag. It's like, no, just brag. Like, talk about the incredible stuff that you've done despite the adversity that you have faced. And you will have faced adversity. As Amir said, 163 years is a long time for us to get gender equality. And there's no doubt in my mind that every woman who has submitted, and every woman and every underrepresented woman who's submitted a nomination, has faced adversity in getting to where they are today. So be proud of where you've got to and what you've achieved.
Absolutely. And I think for those of you who are not sure, what happens is, so I will nominate Advita. Advita then will get an email to go, hey, you've been nominated. But actually, we want to know a little bit more about you. So we then ask Advita 3 questions. And they're all different depending on which category it is. And the whole reason for that is, you can get some brilliantly crafted nominations, but ultimately we would love to interview everyone with it, because this is where we want to unearth these great role models, but we can't necessarily do that. So what we try and do is get people to put it back in their own words, and it will take often a good few reminder emails. And we don't give up. We'll find you on LinkedIn or X or Insta, or because we know that someone has taken the time to put that messaging down, and we know the impact that it can have on individuals just to receive that nomination. And I think that really helps, you know, across some of the communities that we reach when we get these nominations in. And Amar, you are part of so many different communities, and I know one of your big passions is connecting the North. We're a big sort of body of great humans. But how can these awards connect across the North and the communities?
Well, I think, as Avita has sort of mentioned, first and foremost, it allows people to platform who they are, and provides a platform to who they are. We equally then get to hear of their amazing work, and I equally love that brag part of it and tell your story. I think that's critical. Having been fortunate to be a judge and see so many great people not illustrate or demonstrate what they've done in such a compelling way, prevents them from necessarily realizing their ambition and aspiration. So make sure you tell your story. But how does that then lead to connections? Well, first and foremost, it allows people to communicate. And this is a methodology that I came up with years ago. Was we share stories. We then get the opportunity to collaborate. I mean, one of the great things about being a patron and an advocate is very much connecting with people across the private, public, and third sectors, and coming together to say, how do we amplify that? You talk about this multiplying effect. But the third and most critical thing is the celebration part. So the awards for me serve as almost a beacon for connecting diverse communities across the North, bringing together like-minded individuals and organizations dedicated to gender equality. And it's the right thing to do. So great way, and I'll reinforce that community part of what the awards are. The visibility of the awards also attracts attention to regional efforts across the whole of the North, drawing in support from broader networks and stakeholders. So communicate, collaborate, celebrate, and amplify your brag is what I'd say.
I love that. I love all the C's with a little swerve of an A in there for amplify as well. Interesting, actually, this year, one of our Entrepreneur of the Year, she put the most amazing post out afterwards, which was like, I was out Monday night this week and I didn't win and I didn't care. It's not all about the winning, is it, Avita? The impact it can have outside of that. And I've still got that post that Jane wrote, because I remember thinking, God, there was just something powerful in it. She was like, I didn't care, because actually the people I was sat with, the people I met, I thought I had a big network and of people I already knew, but this was amazing. But it's not all about the winning, is it, Avita?
No, not at all. Gosh, no. It's about, as Amar said, quite, articulated it, it's community. It's about connection. It's about building those networks, and it's about listening to other people's stories to inspire you and to motivate you to make those changes that you're doing in the community and the work that you are contributing to. Winning is a great benefit, don't get me wrong, but being part of all of that, the awards and the energy and the enthusiasm is equally, if not even more important. And I mentioned it very briefly when we started this conversation, but sitting on that stage at the Northern Power Women event changed my life because of the community in that room. Listening some of the stories on stage and those women who have done some incredible stuff made me think and realize that actually, why can't I do it? Why can't I set my own business up and put myself out there? What's stopping me living up to my goals and achievements that I want to do? And that's what I would say, that community thing is a core part of Northern Power Women. It's who you connect with, who you build, who motivates you, who inspires you. I see so many of the posts of the women who have been shortlisted and nominated, and just seeing them thrive because they know they're not alone. And that's the key thing. What we do sometimes can feel a bit lonely and a bit isolating, and we feel like we're the only ones who are struggling. But when you go into a room, especially, the awards, where there's thousands of individuals who are so inspirational, and listening to them and what they're doing just gives you that little bit of nudge, and it's having like thousands and thousands of women and allies and advocates holding you up when you're going out there, and remembering that none of this, you're doing it on your own and you're not isolated. And that's what I would say is one of the key benefits of being part of this community. It's never about winning, it's about that connection.
I love that. I love that. And Amar, you've talked about the advocacy list, and you are clearly a proud patron. You are someone who's like, yeah, I'm involved, I'm committed, I want to take a part in this. What makes a good advocate stand out for the crowd in the nomination? I suppose actually any of the nomination, what makes that application stand out?
So I think I briefly mentioned earlier on, but tell your story is absolutely key. But don't just tell your story, bring it to life with facts, figures, impact. What difference have you made? And type of things from an advocate perspective. How have you actively listened to and supported women? How do you challenge discriminatory behaviours and practices, and using your platform, wherever and whatever it is, to have made a demonstrable impact? And what truly distinguishes an exceptional ally is their ability to inspire others. We've just heard from Avita that there's a room filled with 1,400 people, right? They're not complaining about anything. They're actually complementing each other. There's almost a big group hug within this community, and that's what I love about this. Is it's really, really positive, and we're platforming, profiling the right people for the right reasons.
Oh, it's like a hug in a night. Let's talk about self-nominations, Advita. We always, we're open for self-nominations. And we talked about the brag and the humble brag. It's okay, isn't it? It's okay to put yourself forward.
Oh my goodness, yes. If you can't clap for yourself, how can you expect other people to clap for you? It's so important to recognize yourself and validate yourself in all of this. Waiting for someone to validate you and waiting for someone to give you the accolades. People are busy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot happening, and it's not that they don't think that you're good enough, or they don't think that you don't deserve it. It's that people are just moving at pace. And I will always say, because I'm also a confidence coach, and a part of what I say with my confidence coaches is that if you don't believe in yourself, you can't really expect anyone else to believe in you. And the first piece of work you need to do on yourself is to allow yourself to recognize the great stuff you're doing. And I am a huge advocate of self-nomination. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to appreciate who you are and be proud. And we've read and been part, I've been part of the judging world for a long time. And some of the self-nominations are incredible. And I applaud those individuals for taking that bold move and being brave to do that, because it is hard. It's not easy to put yourself out there and recognize and recommend yourself. But it's such a great, bold step to say that actually I deserve this space. And I deserve the work that I have done to be recognized in that way as well. So never hold yourself back. Don't wait for someone to validate you. Put yourself out there, hold your head up high and go forth. That's what I would always say for self-nomination.
Brilliant. And I think we want to close out this webinar with just sort of a top tip. We've talked about the brag, we've talked about the measurement, we've talked about the telling the right story, we're talking about clapping for your own success. What would stop anyone from putting their fingers to that keyboard or making that audio nomination? While you think about that, my top tip, and I got it from one of our nominees last year, which was actually, when you've written your answer, give it to a friend to read back, because almost certainly they'll go, but what about that bit? What about that bit? What about that? Because sometimes we'll skirt around the edges and we'll forget about all our good bits. And even just that process, I think people say, gosh, it was so cathartic. How can we get more people to think, you know what, I am going to do this. I am going to put myself forward. What's the top tip for getting over that self-belief, confidence? Amar?
Great question. And I don't think it's one particular answer, but if you're not doing it for yourself, because Avita rightly says do it for yourself. Well, actually, do it for those around you, right? So demonstrate some selfless commitment to promoting what you're doing and the change that you're making in the world. So, your family, your friends, those close to you, appreciation is a wonderful thing. Be appreciated, position yourself and get out from behind the scenes, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. And we need more people to be seen so others can follow in their footsteps.
100%. And everyone I am a firm believer of is a role model to someone. Rita, what's your top tip?
I completely agree with Amara, by the way. Decentering yourself is so important, and you be the change you want to see. That's critical. But I would also say, what's the worst that can happen? Like, what is the worst that can happen? You put in a nomination. It just demonstrates, that you put yourself out there and people have read your story and people are recognized and seen you, because the judges read every single nomination. We have really good conversations about each and every single person. So in my thing is, what's the worst? What's the worst that can happen? And just think about the great things that you could achieve when you put yourself out there.
I love it. Amar, Evita, thank you so much for joining me today. Please keep sharing across your communities. Let's better connect the North and better celebrate all of the amazing successes out there. Amar, Evita, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Simone.
And thank all of you. Thank all of you. Please do get nominating, whether it's for the public profile spotlight, whether it's for the brand new empowerment champion, whether it's for mentoring, outstanding entrepreneur, inclusive innovation, agent of change. We've got some great awards out there, or our fantastic game changers, future list, power list, advocacy list. Get nominating, get celebrating, unearth that role model. It will literally change the way they feel that day, the next day, the future. You may even change your life. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the questions in the chat. We will follow up with those as well on our social medias. Please do check out wearepower.net, where you can make all of the nominations. And thank you. And we look forward to reading them all. Thanks for joining us today on our How to Ace nominations webinar with the wonderful Evita and Amar. Thank you.